What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So I was thinking about Dustin Poirier this morning and what that last fight for him in the lightweight division may be before he supposedly hangs up the gloves, retires, walks off into the sunset, right? And then I remember thinking to myself, with Arman Sarukian pulling out of his last fight, which was a weight miss. I'm about 99.9% sure. That's beside the point. I've been shut up, dude. Benil Dariush was set to fight Renato Moicano. Renato made the championship weight of 155. He stepped in last minute to replace Arman Sarukian. We know what happened there. He got completely demolished in the first round, leaving Benil Dariush without an opponent. And then I happened to think to myself, I remember seeing, a few videos here and there, in recent history of Benil calling out Dustin Poirier, and I thought to myself, I'm pretty sure Benil really wants that fight. Like, what could be the holdup there? Benil's a top guy, currently ranked number 7. Obviously, Poirier's still in the top 5. He's pretty much been there most, if not all, of his career. He's currently ranked number 4. And I do remember hearing, some whispers of Poirier doesn't want that fight, doesn't get him excited, this and that and the third. And I thought, okay, let's look into this a little bit. So I started doing that. First thing I saw was a couple of shorts where Dariush is actually asking for that fight. Definitely for a while there, Poirier's name was in Dariush's mouth quite a lot. So let's look at a couple of those and just kind of see where Dariush is coming from in his perspective. So check these out.
So I think that makes a lot of sense to me, is to fight him. We were supposed to fight, and then he made some excuses about not wanting to fight. And then he went and fought Benoit Saint Denis. It was really weird because he was saying, I don't really need this fight, blah, 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 blah. And then he took a fight with Benoit. So I think it makes sense. The fight makes a lot of sense. I don't think he's scared of me. I don't think fighters are scared, but for whatever reason, he didn't think it was worth his while back then. But then he went and fought Benoit, who was ranked behind me. I think he was like number 13 or 14. I don't even know if he was ranked back then, because I remember he had beaten Thiago Moises, and that's it. So it just, it didn't sit well with me. He goes and fights a guy who's not even in the top 10. So that's the only fight that if I had a preference, I would put Dustin Poirier as the one I want to fight.
I saw recently in an interview you said you were getting offered that fight twice. Why has that fight not come together?
Well, I believe, I've seen interviews with Dustin. He's not really interested in fighting me. I don't get him excited, I guess, the way he puts it. But from my understanding is, when John Jones got hurt, they were hoping to boost that card up with Dustin Poirier and myself. And they called him, and he wasn't interested. And I believe they even tried for this date. This is what I was told. I'm not sure what he was told on his side, but they were also given the option of fighting this date with me, and he turned down both of them. So that's what I've been told. This is why I like to hear the other side as well, so I can know what actually happened. So, but that's all I got. They offered him the fight because they wanted to boost the card a little bit more, and he didn't take the fight for whatever reason.
Dariush said in a nicer way, quit being a fucking scared little person, fight him. Other younger contenders, or just give up and retire from the sport. True. Poirier responds by saying thank you and offering him hot sauce. Yeah, it's just fucking retarded. But I agree with Benil Dariush, man. Dariush did what he needed to do. He fought Gamrot. He fought the dangerous contender that was on the come up, that was fresh. And these Poirier, Gaethjes, and Chandlers don't fucking do it. So quite honestly, it's a fucking piss take, lad.
So if you look at those, obviously more than once, more than twice, more than a few times in public interviews, yada, 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 Benil Dariush has called out Poirier, saying that fight makes sense. He wants to take that fight. And Poirier has simply responded, that fight doesn't really excite me. And I'm on a search for the psychology behind these fighters and what they may be thinking when taking these next matchups, and what matchups seem intriguing to them and what matchups do not seem intriguing to them. And what we're going to finish it off with is the great Chael P. Sonnen, who, if anybody ever tries to call me out for mispronouncing a fighter's name again, I swear. Chael Sonnen is the worst. It's Dariush. It's not Darush. But listen, when you have over 1 million followers on YouTube, you're a former fighter, you're a legend in the business. Who cares? You can mispronounce names all you want to. Anyway, I just had to throw that in there. And we're going to end with a really, really quick 30-second depiction of how he sees the situation. But first, I'm going to give mine. Because I looked at this and I was like, you know what? Benil Dariush has faced some of the top guys. Like, why would it be that Dustin Poirier does not want that fight and that fight does not excite him? Now, obviously, the quick, easy answer here is, well, he feels like he could lose it. When somebody doesn't want to take a fight with somebody else that's ranked anywhere close to them, that's the first thing they say. They're afraid they're going to lose. I mean, fair enough, but I think Dustin Poirier has been at the top long enough to where it deserves a little bit of a deeper dive than that. And then I remembered the fact that, he did take that fight with Benoit Saint Denis. Benoit Saint Denis was not even ranked in the top 10 at the time. I think maybe number 12, 13, 14, somewhere around in there. Benoit's currently dropped down to 16 at this point, so he's not even the top 15. At the time he was. But then I look at what about that fight intrigued Dustin Poirier versus a Benil Dariush fight, who Benil has faced some of the very top guys in the division. Charles Oliveira, although he lost a fight, Arman Tsarukyan. Outside of that, outside of those very top guys, Benil Dariush has pretty much won all of his recent fights, right? But I think you can chalk it up to one word for Dustin Poirier, who has achieved the level of fame and stardom that he has. The 2 super fights with Conor McGregor, both which he won. The coming off of yet another, which makes his 3rd title shot. Had one with Khabib, had one with Charles Oliveira, and his latest was with Islam Makhachev. Was not able to get over the hump on any of those, but has also held an interim belt. Dustin Poirier's fought the best of the best. When you look at an opponent like Benoit Saint Denis, I think for Dustin Poirier, it's all about the sexiness of the matchup. Okay, and I mean this in a completely no homo sort of way. Benil Dariush is not a sexy matchup for Dustin Poirier. All right, because you look at Benoit Saint Denis, up and coming French guy, mysterious, the big beard, finishing most of his fights. Let's look at Benoit Saint Denis. Benoit Saint Denis has had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fights in the UFC. One of them has gone to a decision. His very first fight in the UFC back in 2021 went to a decision. Since then, every fight up until the time Poirier faced him, every match, 4 wins, back to back to back. All of them either KO, TKO finishes or rear naked choke submissions. Benoit Saint Denis winning the fight. Okay? Special forces guy. Known to be this dangerous guy. Finished his fight before that against Matt Frevola with basically a running head kick finish. Something that you very rarely ever see. And then I think Dustin looked at that, and he looked at the sort of shine that this guy was getting. But then he sat down with his coaches, and he watched some of the tape of Benoit Saint Denis. And I think that he saw some clear holes in the game, especially the striking game of Benoit Saint Denis, which now has been exposed not once, but twice. More recently, he was KO'd by Dustin Poirier, turned around and got KO'd 6 months later by Moicano, who couldn't even last a round with Islam Makhachev. All right, so you see where I'm going with this. It's putting Benoit Saint Denis in perspective a little bit now. Whether it was favorable matchups, whether he's just a grimy, guy that sets a huge pace, strong individual for the lightweight division, whatever his secret was, he rattled off 4 wins back to back, and they were sexy. TKO finishes. a really clean head kick finish, you know, 2 submission chokes over top guys, Thiago Moises, Bonfim. The fight with Saint Denis was sexy. Even though he was ranked lower than Dustin Poirier, is something that Dustin Poirier looked and he saw the shine that Benoit Saint Denis was getting, and he thought to himself, I can take some of that. Because let's be real here, it's all about the perspective of the people, of the world, of the fans, right? And really, when you look at someone's skill set itself, the skill set, it is what it is. The skill set, that's not really an objective concept. That's a subjective concept. They're however good they are at grappling, they're however good they are at striking, they're however good they are at kicking, they're however good they are at boxing. You know, you can stack all of that up, and at the end of the day, that's technically subjective. Now, it's going to be objective because people who rate those things are going to be looking at different things in different ways. Okay, fair enough. That aspect of it is objective. But skill set is a subjective concept. Okay? Either a guy's better than another guy or he's not. Either he has better skills or he doesn't. You know? Now, that was a sexy matchup. And the way fans look and the way a person comes across to the fan base is really, bottom line, the kind of love and attention that the fans are giving a fighter is synonymous with how sexy that matchup is. And I think Dustin Poirier is looking at Benil Dariush, and obviously his skills speak for themselves. But he's kind of a quiet guy, doesn't make a big stink. He doesn't have the body full of tattoos. Very meek, kind of humble Christian individual. Listen, I'm not throwing off on the guy at all. I mean, he's obviously a great guy, and he's obviously very talented as well. Guy's got more gray hair than I do, and I'm a 48-year-old man. Okay, but you see where I'm going with this, right? That matchup to someone like Dustin Poirier, who's fought the best of the best and feels like he's earned his stripes of only super fights. Only fights that are going to, in turn, whether he wins or loses, are going to shine him up really nicely. He feels like the Benil Dariush fight doesn't do that. Fans are very educated these days, so I think they know how good Benil is. But as far as this, Benil doesn't do that. He doesn't do any of that, which in some ways makes him not as much of an appeal to fans to watch. I actually personally love watching him fight. I think he's actually very entertaining, got an entertaining style. But I admit, he doesn't look the part, you know. He's not all tatted up, you know. He's been known to come in with a little pudge on his body. Very meek Christian guy who doesn't even curse, which I know Dustin Poirier doesn't either, but he's still, you know, a good-looking guy who's all tatted up. He ends all of his fights in knockouts, you know. And then if you look at someone like Benil Dariush, to be fair, he was winning quite a bit of his fights by KO or submission early on, but he's about half and half at this point. Quite a bit of fights gone to decisions for Benil. Dustin Poirier has gotten to a point where he feels like he should be able to have some sort of say, you know. And if this matchup does not do anything for me, and I don't find that matchup sexy, then on to the next. Because it seems that this fight has been proposed to Dustin Poirier multiple times, right? Multiple times. And every time it's happened, Dustin Poirier has said no. Dustin Poirier can't sit there and say, oh, you know, I shouldn't have to fight these up-and-coming guys anymore. You know, I've earned my stripes. I shouldn't have to do that. Well, you just fought a guy that wasn't even ranked in the top 10 less than a year ago. So, you know, that psychology is that we're not following you on that. And then you got Benil Dariush, who's only ranked 3 spaces behind you if you're not going to be one of those contenders who gives the up and coming guys who are a few spaces behind you in the rankings a chance, then what's your point here? Go ahead and hang it up. Go ahead and retire. But I think for Dustin Poirier, it all has to do with, and he said, that fight doesn't excite me. What he means is that fight does nothing to elevate me, whether I win or lose, and the risk versus the reward is off. Because that's a hard freaking fight, because Benil Dariush is a very, very top level opponent, right? So if he wins, there's not a lot of shine to go on him, because in his opinion, Benil Dariush does not have a lot of sexy shine in terms of MMA standards, right? But then, God forbid, he loses. And then he loses to this meek Christian guy who's, going gray by the time he's 35 and doesn't have one tattoo and is pudgy. And, it's not cool. It's not a hip. It's not a sexy matchup for Dustin Poirier. He's at a point in his career where he feels like he's earned the right to get only fights that are going to elevate him and his legacy and his brand, win or lose, right? Because as we know, win or lose, the fight can elevate you. Absolutely, Dustin Poirier was elevated off of the loss to Islam Makhachev, right? Islam Makhachev is a huge star. We're talking about Ilia Topuria coming up to 155. Dustin is very interested in that fight. Why is that? Because Ilia Topuria is a sexy matchup. And he is known worldwide. And he is a huge star. And he knocked out Alexander Volkanovski. He knocked out Max Holloway. He wants something that is going to elevate his status as he walks out the door, as opposed to devaluing his status as he walks out the door. And Benil Dariush is a tough night out for anyone. And it's not sexy. And there's a chance you could lose that, right? And then you've lost to the gray-headed, pudgy, soft-spoken Christian, bless thou for I'm about to beat your ass. Or I just beat your ass. God bless you. Let's finish with what Uncle Chael says here. And, I brought this up because I want to know what you guys think, too. Because when you look at the top 10 there, he's faced everyone, But then you look at Poirier has already said he would love the Ilia Topuria fight if he comes 155. He's open to the Max Holloway fight, another one there, right? He's open to another fight with Dan Hooker, I believe, even though Dan currently has a matchup, so I don't know how the timing would work there. But, Dustin's supposedly on his way out the door, so he may be willing to wait. Who knows? Maybe a second fight with those two. There are certain fights that he finds sexy, right? Benil Dariush is not one of them. It's not one of them. And I'm very interested in the psychology behind that. What do you guys think? Why is that? Why does he not want that fight? And make it something better than, oh, he's scared. He's scared to lose. Even though, that does have some merit in the whole risk versus reward. That's a pretty high risk for seemingly not a very high reward. Because Benil Dariush doesn't have a sexy persona. He doesn't have a very domineering persona. Plus, he's coming off of 2 losses. And to be fair, Dustin Poirier, the only losses he's had other than the BMF head kick to Gagey has been to champions, basically. You have to go back to 2016 to find a loss that Dustin Poirier had against a guy who was not a champion. That's crazy. So for the last 9 years, Dustin Poirier has 1 loss that was to an opponent who was not a current champion. Any other loss that he's had has been to the very best guy in the world, except for, of course, the loss to Justin Gaethje for the BMF belt. So does that give him the right to pick and choose what's sexy for him, pick and choose what's going to elevate him off of a win or a loss? Let me know what you guys think. I found that interesting that he was so against fighting Benil Dariush. Let me know why you guys think so. And we're going to end with Chael Sonnen and his take on all of this. So check it out.
Nobody's that guy until he's that guy. But Benny most certainly is not. He is a true competitor. If you called him up and you had a match for him, it would not matter what the name was. It wouldn't matter if it was the first fight of the night or if it was the main event. There's not very many people like that, particularly with the record, with the resumes, with the skill set, with the pedigree of Benil Dariush. It's something really compelling. And I know that Dustin had it. I'm not ready to go as far as to tell you he doesn't still have it. I haven't seen that from Dustin Poirier. I have seen a gritty, grimy competitor in Dustin. I have not seen him say goodbye to that. But I think we can understand from Poirier's standpoint of what's in it for me. There was a time when a competition in front of the world, hard work, set a goal, move forward. There was a time when that was all that was needed. But when you've done that rinse and repeat as many times as Poirier has, it is reasonable that now you turn to a little more of, hey, what's in that for me?
All right, guys, thank you very much. If you would, please do subscribe to the channel. Like the video. Why do you think Dustin Poirier is hell-bent on not taking the fight with Benil Dariush? I will see you on the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Peace.